Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Fujon.
What if your emotional life didn't have to feel like a constant reaction or a constant recovery? Welcome to the International Awareness Integration Institute Virtual Clinic, a global online clinic offering psychotherapy, coaching, integrative well-being services, and mind-body practices, all in one place. At International Awareness Integration Institute, we don't just talk about change, we train it. Our work is guided by awareness integration theory, an evidence-based psychological and educational model designed to reduce anxiety and depression patterns, strengthen emotional regulation, and help you build a life that feels meaningful, steady, and fulfilling. Whether you're navigating stress, relationship strain, burnout, life transitions, trauma symptoms, or simply the feeling that you've outgrown your old life, you'll find a clear path forward here, supported by licensed professionals and expert practitioners. If you're ready to feel better, think clearer, and live fully, join the International Awareness Integration Institute Virtual Clinic today. Visit awarenessintegration.com and book your first session or join our membership. Introducing a powerful new update from the Fujon app. Now with flexible subscription plans to fit your journey monthly, quarterly, or yearly. Our new AI-driven onboarding customizes your path to feeling better, faster, and enjoy a refreshed experience with stunning 3D interactive videos. Update now. Empower your inner voice with Fujon. Download today.
Sense of belonging and family support are the greatest predictors. And I have to say this, it's if you take a strong family support and you take a group of people and they all have great family support, but they lack a sense of belonging. And what is this sense of belonging? It's feeling valued, that you could contribute to a community. These students were 18 times more likely to suffer from a psychological distress, to have psychological distress. That's just, so even if we create a great context at home, family is wonderful. But if someone doesn't feel like they belong, and there are ways that we could address that, and there are some interventions that we can do, but they're at risk of a mental health, crisis. And as you mentioned, self-harm and, suicide, contemplation and completion. There's just this sense of belonging so crucial, and that ability to build that community and that trust is so vital and at the kernel of the center of it. So I think it's brilliant, what you're doing here, and what we're trying to do here is get this,
If you've been doing your best, but still feel stuck in anxiety, relationship stress, or the weight of old patterns, this is where things begin to shift. At the Awareness Integration Institute Virtual Clinic, we offer something different. We provide two pathways forward. In psychotherapy, our licensed clinicians help heal unresolved trauma, reduce anxiety and depression, and navigate life transitions. In coaching, our certified coaches help you build confidence, leadership, and relationship mastery, turning insight into decisive action. Both are guided by Dr. Foojan Zain's evidence-based awareness integration theory, a structured roadmap from awareness to integration to action. During our summit, save 25% on all services from March 22nd through 29th. Visit awarenessintegration.com to book your first session or request to be matched with the right provider. Welcome to the Inner Voice. This is a heartfelt chat where we explore how to clear the past, create a new future, and live a fulfilled life now. I'm your host, Dr. Foojan Zain. I'm a psychotherapist, a life and a business coach, an author, speaker, and the founder of the International Awareness Integration Institute. Each week, I bring you a heartfelt conversation about healing, self-awareness, relationships, mind and body well-being, emotional clarity, and creating a life that feels true to who you really are. So today, I will be talking with Joe Dorri. He's a founder and president of The Good Student, It's a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to advancing student mental health. He studied psychology at USC and has published peer-reviewed research and presented at American Psychological Association conventions. He developed the Good Student Tool, a free, anonymous, science-backed assessment connecting individuals and institutions with the resources they need to thrive. You can check them out at thegoodstudent.org. So my intention is that this conversation touches your heart, awakens your awareness, and gives you something meaningful to carry into your own life. So let's begin. Here is Joseph Dorri.
Listen up if you want to promote your personal growth and self-awareness. I found the Fujon app last month and I have been absolutely loving it. I personally have never learned guided meditation, but thanks to this app, I now have learned incredible tools for my own stress relief and emotional self-awareness. Not to mention, there are self-evaluation tools and professional coaching available to utilize however your journey to self-discovery takes you. Join Fujon today and redefine your life one step at a time.
Now, sometimes the mind understands, but the body still holds the stress. That's why the International Awareness Integration Institute Virtual Clinic offers mind-body services that help you regulate your nervous system, restore calm, and return to yourself physically, emotionally, and mentally. Our reflective practices include guided mindfulness, breath work, yoga, and grounding exercises, and specifically curated to support emotional regulation and physiological calm. Our somatic integration practices are a refined body-led approach where healing begins with presence, working with breath, sensation, posture, and gentle movement so resilience becomes felt, not forced. And for those who want deeper whole person support, we offer functional well-being guidance, addressing the interplay between hormonal balance, digestion, sleep architecture, and lifestyle factors with a root cause holistic framework. This is not self-care as a luxury. This is self-regulation as a life skill and a pathway to fulfillment. Choose the support your body and life have been asking for. Visit awarenessintegration.com to join a weekly meditation, explore somatic healing, breathwork, yoga-inspired movement, or functional medicine services, and start feeling the difference. Well, welcome to the show, everyone. Joseph Dorri with us. Thank you for taking the opportunity to be with us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fujon. And it is a great honor, truly, and pleasure to be here. And I'm so glad that we've been able to collaborate, connect, and talk some more. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I'm really intrigued. First of all, I want you to share with people, obviously, you know, in the intro, I've expressed who you are and what you do. But there's a path that got you interested into creating a psychological tool where it actually measures, particular concepts that are so important for not only humanity at large, but so important for the age range that goes through the most difficulty. So let's say like adolescent, teenagers, and young adults, where they're going to, like, say, junior high and then to high school, and then they're going to colleges or universities. And this is like the most important. I know that everybody says, the from 0 to 7 is one of the most important and the most. And I say, yes, it is the most. And I would say the next level that is the most is these years that we are finding our own identity, right? Like from 0 to 7, we picked up our parents and the community. But at this age, we're taking everything that we've ever learned and putting it into ourselves and figuring out who am I and what is my identity. So it's so important. And as you have taught this age range, that you have really seen, what they're struggling with. And so tell us, share with us your passion, what you went through, what got you interested in this demographic itself, that you really wanted to work with them, and some of your findings.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Fujon. And I just want to acknowledge, as I've done more research into your therapy, your approach, your model, the awareness integration theory, and your personal background, I could say with all genuinity, this is truly a pleasure, but also a great honor to connect with you. I mean, those that do not know your story yet, it's if you're in a tough spot, this is a story worth looking at. And You're just really doing wonderful. And so I thank you for that role model. It's truly wonderful. Yeah, definitely. So, right, the age ranges that I'm working with are high school through college mostly, and then some adults now, some more. And what we're finding is that mental health is not only a substantial issue for young adults in terms of anxiety and depression, but loneliness is very high. I mean, we look at, right? I mean, loneliness, even for us adults, it's about half the population based on the US Surgeon General. And the data that we're looking at, there's a sample size of 84,000 students. I mean, we're looking at 51% reporting loneliness, and we can understand that. But this loneliness ends up impacting our self-worth, our anxiety, our depression. And so, what I'm finding in our research, which I'll get a chance to share in a bit, but also just for my teaching, students are really isolating themselves, and that is a huge, I want to say error, but it's just a huge problem for us all, not just for the individual, but also for the whole community. I mean, we're missing out on that. So this is what I'm really seeing is, and a few other things which I love to get into, but this is a huge issue, is just that lack of connection and even an ability to connect with others, is a huge issue from high school to college.
And this obviously age range is the highest level of suicide attempts. And sometimes not only attempt, but they complete the suicide, and it has the highest rate. And I, working also with parents in my sessions, this is the most challenging time for any parent to be able to deal with their teenagers. Every day things are going so much faster. And I think that even the teenager, not only that they're coming to a new place in life, but the speed of light, the growth of the speed of light, the things that they have to learn about technology, all the social media, everything that is happening to them, it adds to the essence of loneliness and a not sense of belonging anywhere. It's like they're trying to figure out who they are, but in what context, because the context keeps changing. So I could see how it's so important to really focus on this group so that we could support them in any format that we can. And we could support their family and support the teachers, because, the same way that you're teaching the teenagers and the college age, I do. And I think that sometimes we all sit there looking at, and I've talked to teachers also and professors, and they're like, we have no idea. Like, we do what we do, but we don't even know whether it resonates or goes in or not.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are all so true, Dr. Fujon. I mean, so let's take a course that I'm currently teaching. This one actually is ethics and health and science, or science and health, regardless. And it's starting today, actually. And when we think about it, we talk about how are students approaching their studies, right? There's ethics, but then how are we also approaching our relationships? And something you mentioned is trust. And I think that's what's really a hard thing, at least for myself, with some of my background, to get into. And in general, it's like, are we learning to trust people? Are we able to trust people? Who is this person? And how can we know to trust someone unless we get a chance to interact with them? I mean, we're such social beings. So, I mean, it's right. We need to create that context where people are able to interact and build a rapport and build a sense of belonging. And it's spot on. And, back to your point, Dr. Fujon, about like how faculty, so I'll stop there, but very important, crucial points on sense of belonging. I don't want to. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So wonderful. So I'm working on being, more concise. So this is great feedback.
Go for it.
So, thank you. And so we talk about faculty, right? I mean, we are faculty, those of us who have studied psychology, practice psychology, psychological researchers and practitioners, we get a sense of what to look for. But students are not always showing the signs, or it's not very, obvious. Some things are obvious when they're sitting in a corner and they're not talking to anyone, but there's some underlying, challenges that don't show up so clearly. Someone could be bubbly and very effusive and outgoing, but at the same time, like myself, was very depressed. I mean, a very popular high school and college and social, but I was suffering. Like, I was depressed. I put my head in my shoulder crying during one of our movies. The lights were out, and we're watching a movie in a science class, and I put my head in my shoulder and I was crying, and no one knows about this. So I think this epidemic is huge. Students are suffering. adults are suffering, and we need to address that. I know we addressed that through a wonderful app of yours, actually, which uses your model and really approaches several aspects, strategically in people's lives. And I think we need to get those type of resources, and of course, our mental health tool that I'll elaborate on, which I've built, and get students this help. And if faculty don't see this, they don't know the signs, at least getting them this tool, this app at the start of a school year, a student can gauge and go, I really don't have that much social support. And actually, Dr. Fujon, our studies are showing the two key most important factors in mental health, just two key ones, and they're independently predictive. So if you isolate one of these factors, namely social support in terms of family support. So if you have a sense of family support, that is the greatest predictor of mental health for high school kids. Along with that, just barely below that is a sense of belonging on campus. And how do students gain a sense of belonging on campus, right? Especially during this atmosphere, this context, this culture, this era. And so then what we find is a similar pattern in our studies. We're presenting at APA, and Jazz is a wonderful student of mine, of course, Roar and some other ones. I call her my protege. And so it's her first American Psychological Association presentation, and I adore her, very supportive, like a child to me. She's fantastic. And so we're presenting our work there, and what we're finding is that sense of belonging and family support are the greatest predictors. And I have to say this, it's if you take a strong family support and you take a group of people and they all have great family support, but they lack a sense of belonging. And what is this sense of belonging? It's feeling valued, that you could contribute to a community. These students were 18 times more likely to suffer from to have psychological distress. That's just, so even if we create a great context at home, family is wonderful. But if someone doesn't feel like they belong, and there are ways that we could address that, and there are some interventions that we can do, but they're at risk of a mental health, crisis. And as you mentioned, self-harm and, suicide, contemplation and completion. There's just this sense of belonging so crucial, and that ability to build that community and that trust is so vital and at the kernel of the center of it. So I think it's brilliant, what you're doing here, and what we're trying to do here is get this, aware to people.
Conversation of sense of belonging is a amazing paradigm, because at the age that we're looking at, usually a teenager is trying to push their parents away in their own world in order to find their own identity. And then obviously they find their sense of belonging within their own peers. So if they have any type of social, the lack of social connection, or a competitive edge, or something happens within that they don't have the sense of belonging to their peers. And I think this is so important when you said that, which is you can have all the family support, but because the age is an age that you're supposed to become an independent and kind of like cut the umbilical cord, that the sense of belonging isn't just about the family system, it's about the community, and their community is their peers. And then, now you have social media that their peers are supposed to look like, oh, I'm the best in social media, while they're not necessarily internally feeling that. Or that they're getting bullied in social media, or they're being asked to do things they don't want to, and then, they want to belong to a certain group, but they don't necessarily hold the same value system. So they don't want to, go in drugs and, have the sexual experiences, or some, drink until they get knocked out, because they have to be a part of a social group that pushes them into it. And therefore, the sense of belonging changes. And I think that we're also, when we live in communities that are diverse, and who you are at home has a different culture versus when you go to your school and they have a different culture, or that there's such a diverse group that you can't really belong to any of these groups that are the peers that you are. The lack of sense of belonging becomes a whole the harshest concept of the developmental stage at that time. What are you finding as you are dealing with this group every day?
Right. Yeah. Terrific question, and spot on. I mean, there is such diversity. There's such a need and desire to connect. And how are we facilitating that, right? Because whether if we have a online platform, and how is that being regulated? Like, what is safe out there? And so there are different ways that we're addressing it. I'm addressing it in my nonprofit, not 501c3 nonprofit, The Good Student, which we're addressing, and what we're promoting and hoping to have integrated are these intervention type models where a student is able to take an activity. It's a half hour long, and this has been studied at Harvard, Stanford, all these top schools, of course, provide some credibility there, and they've done some control studies. And so what we find is that if a student goes through and they list their 10 values, their top 10 values, and then they elaborate on their top three, right? And then go from there, and they contemplate them, apply to their lives, things like that, similar to some of your model, right? And so what would happen is that they've identified their values, they've seen how it's integrated into their lives, their social world. And this actually bolsters, it supports their well-being, it supports their sense of belonging. And it takes a half hour. Right? I mean, it's not a panacea. It's not going to solve every issue. However, it does put the drops, in the right bucket. There's a Buddhist saying, it says, drop by drop, a person becomes good. It's like these things build up, or, we're Persians, so gatre, jem shavad, vonjay hidaryo shavad, if I'm saying it correctly, which is water pools together and it becomes an ocean. And as we make these wonderful efforts as a community and individually, we could help move the pendulum toward, or the meter, toward greater health and greater sense of belonging. So it's the individual interventions, and then some of this integrative model that you have, having an app that someone could go to and check in, and it provides guardrails, right? So your app has Mira, and you can inquire, and it has these integrative model, and they can go, okay, this is where I am, and as much as I understand it, I'd love to learn more, and I've been going in depth, and so they're able to reflect on this app, which is their constant companion, right? They're able to go in and look at it, and then also we need institutional approaches, right? So like when we start off the school year, we have orientation process. I went to University of Southern California. They're going to take a day long to visit the campus. This is your library. If they're smart enough to get into USC, I'm sure they're smart enough to find the library. I mean, it's some light humor here. It's a cultural vibe and very strong spirit. But at the start of a year, what we need to do, and I'll paraphrase here, is is we need to show them the importance of belonging. We need to give them ways to integrate, and one would be, let's assess your sense of belonging. This is where you seem to be. It's totally anonymous, so no one knows their sense of belonging. And they go, okay, and here are some resources. So this is one way to create a sense of belonging, is these are campus resources and community. So there's the psychology club, there's the martial arts club. I grew up doing martial arts. There's that club, there's a cultural club, there's a, Iranian American club, or, et cetera, all these different clubs, and, Asian American, and it's so important because we see those people who mirror us, whether it's ethnicity or if it's language or if it's values, faith-based, and they can feel as a part of community. And so this is so vital. And so I think having this like three-pronged approach is a really effective way. So starting from the ground up and institutionally. So those would be great ways.
I know that you've shared just the bit pieces on this. One is a tool that you created, which is an assessment tool that I'm asking you to talk more about it. And then you also brought it to goodstudent.org .org. Goodstudent.org.
Yep.
Which is the nonprofit organization where people can go. Can you share a little bit about each one of them in detail so that our audience has an idea, when you were talking about you created a tool, what that tool is and what the purpose of that tool is?
Right. Absolutely. So this is an anonymous, free, science-backed tool. So what are all these meaning? It means, first of all, the students' responses are not going to be associated with their grades. They could go on, incognito mode, go on to the, secured platform, which is used by universities and industry. So it's highly secure, right? It's the top end security. And they could go in there. They don't provide any information. They're not going to, a website which may or may not have a good one, and they're asking for their information. No, this is totally anonymous. They don't provide any personal information. They go in. in, they answer a set of questions. These are questionnaires that have been validated. So Kessler's 6-item questionnaire, over World Health Organization's well-being scale. These are 5 items, 5 questions, as you know, but for audience. And then you have 6 questions for the psychological distress. So they'll go through all these different quick surveys. It takes about 8 to 10 minutes. Okay. And they will answer these questions. And we've identified, from my research, I've identified what are the key areas that are most crucial. Well-being and school success, school support, what does that look like? And so what we're finding is family support. We're looking at social support. We're looking at mental health. We're looking at well-being, sense of belonging, which research is showing our dialogue is, our communications highlighting, and then also mindset. Everyone talks about mindset. It's shown to improve grades, and grades are important for several reasons, right? It's not, the top. I failed high school because of just social and all those things. So grades are not everything. I want to be clear. I'm not a grade promoter here whatsoever. If anything, I encourage you to break some rules and do what you want to do. But so back to the scale is. Students will answer, and adults as well, answer these questions, and they get a score out of 100. So this would say you have a 69% out of 100 of family support. But then it goes, okay, well, great. What do I do with that? And so here's my score, and then here are resources. So for, say, mental health, it would say, here's the hotline, of course, Vital 988, but then also websites to learn more about mental health. Also, I'd love to be integrating your app into that, right? So that they could go and have something that's also tangible and useful daily, and then other resources. And these are resources that are vetted. These are vetted by students, super crucial. They're vetted by psychologists, educators, administrators. And what we're finding is that 91 to 100% of students are recommending this tool to their schools and their colleges. And it's completely anonymous. So it's a way for them to honestly reflect, get results, and they could save their scores and track it over time to see how they're doing, and take this and use it and take it to a trusted friend, not the whole thing, but just say, hey, dad, mom, or, counselor A, B, like, seems like I don't really have family support, or I need this kind of support. I don't feel like I belong. What are some solutions here? And then they could talk with their counselor, like you in your therapy sessions, and then get the help they need. It gives them a language. It gives them a way to connect with people.
I think it's so important, because a lot of time at this age is more like anybody who works with teenagers and young adults, and anybody who has one, is raising one, knows that the actual answer usually with any question from them is, I don't know. And they really don't know. Like they can't put these things together, and they can't really attach them together. So it's having a tool that asks the right question, and then, puts it in a perspective and says, based on your answers, this is where it might be lacking, gives them a guideline. It gives them a path to say, oh, now I want to connect, and I want to look at this area specifically to promote it, to move it. I know, for example, I teach at Cal State Long Beach mental health and community well-being course. And it's interesting because, I give them the awareness integration journaling. And as I start with the beginning of the term, they're like, why do I have to do this? Like they only look at school, and they only look at, their relationship with school and studying, because obviously I'm offering this to them at the university level. So their assumption is that it only has to do with grades in school. And then when it shows up with like finances, and when it shows up with their relationship with their mother, father, siblings, intimate relationships, and all of these other areas of life. And at the beginning, they're like, I don't know how to answer these questions. But by the 15th week, where they've completed all of it, and, our courses are getting complete, I asked them, I want you to present what experience you had this whole term, and especially with the AIT. And it's amazing that when it is clarified in each of these areas of what it is that's missing and what it is that they can do, and they gain the tools, that at the end of the session, I'm usually just listening to their presentation and kind of like, doing this crying with connection and joy of all of these different areas that they never knew how to connect and create something that they've done, And interestingly enough, at this age, finances are important, because they've just began to look at finances and how to manage it, how to earn it, what to do with it, beside, the all family constructs. So it is so important to have tools, okay, maybe I have it only with my students, but you created this essence that the tools are available for all pretty much. And they can go and really check in, create a language, put these things together and say, oh, if I'm feeling this way, it could be because of I don't have social support. So now how do I get it? And then obviously the skill building space is there afterward. If you could go to these places and either connect or heal or find new skills and create role models and move forward. So all of that is available after they've taken the tool. So it's so important. And then, as you said, I just want people to know that you have definitely created value with this tool because it's been utilized in major universities such as, like you said, Duke. You're doing that in Duke also, right? So share a little bit about where you have done that.
Sure. Yeah. So it's great. So recently I reached out to a colleague. So we've been using this tool across campuses, high schools, and also getting it integrated, not just in the US college systems, but also internationally, actually. And so recently what we've been doing is creating greater partnerships, more partnerships, organizations, nonprofits, and also universities. So I spoke with a Duke University professor about that. And so she was very interested and actually has suggested doing a cross campus analysis. So that was a great invite. And then, we've been also using data from ACT, the standardized testing organization. They had invited me for their mental health speaker. And that data we gathered, I analyzed that, and then took that and actually, published on that. So we've been going both nonprofit and institutions, colleges, and thanks to the work of my, students and my colleagues, we're able to get it, even out there broader and validating our scales. Our newer ones are showing great reliability and, what we call, as Professor, but, exploratory factor analysis. We're getting the right numbers, in other words. So it's getting used and students are excited. And
I love to take it.
We're hoping to also do some control studies.
Yes, I love to take it also to Cal State University, Long Beach, and be able to do that with our students and get some numbers for you. So why the nonprofit? What is it that you are trying to do with the nonprofits, if you could share?
Right. Yeah, and as we had connected earlier and I got to share a little bit, but this will be some newer info and some of which I shared in writing. And so the question for why the tool is because of the depression myself, and you could be a very good student, right, in terms of like getting great grades, being very personable, and making an impact, as and at the same time be very anxious and depressed. So as a bicultural, my folks were from Iran. They came here before the regime changed. So when there was a king, as but others. And so I was born in this, bicultural environment. And where am I getting a sense of belonging where the culture is so different? And it'd be appropriate to share, some experience of abuse. I had a shiner in my eyes. So what you call a shiner in colloquial terms, meaning, and you make light of some things now, but there's a school photo of my family living room with a nice little mark there. And that was from life experiences, some experiences at home. And so that trauma stays with you unless if it's dealt with through therapy and other things. As So eventually I had depression in high school. Just trying to be transparent with, our audience here. And these are, they can know that they could relate. Audience can know that they can relate to these stories. And we don't come with everything ready, as you so well know, Dr. Fujon. So, depression in high school, it wasn't addressed. No one really knew, as I shared earlier. And then started off at college. And then in college had the depression as well. Started at USC. But I had that lack of social support. I had gone through, a time of homelessness by choice because of choosing not to be connected with my family and resources. And then from there, went to SC, had those personal struggles with not having a sense of belonging. And then after that, having great mentors. One of our colleagues is Philip Zimbardo, who is, as you know, the Stanford Prison guy, but he's a voice and face of contemporary American psychology. He had mentioned that's his greatest legacy, and I'll give it to him. He really has that personality. And I remember messaging him for weeks. I mean, for months. It was like almost truly on a daily basis. And I looked at it, it's like thousands and thousands. And so he was that support. He was that father figure, right? And so having those mentors, and now with a partner who's amazing, you talk about in one of your interviews, Dr. Fujon, about trust. And just this partner, just Hope and I she's just patient and kind and caring. So I built these rapport over time, and that helped with my healing along with the therapy. And, and I'm going to be candid with some medication. I don't promote it. I'm very health oriented, but, I feel it's appropriate to be that, candid, and I want to be open. And sometimes you need that extra help to get through things. And so I graduated, right? Thank you. And I graduated University of Southern California, worked on a nonprofit for a mentor I just mentioned, and then started the nonprofit my own. I wrote a book on college success, and then started this nonprofit for addressing mental health, pretty much creating something that I wish I had, as I was in college and high school. If I'll just add this one sentence or two, it's, if we could deal with mental health earlier, it would be such a benefit to the individual and the society, because you spend less time suffering, you spend less time in school, you spend less time trying to figure life out, and you're a nicer person when you go out. I mean, when I go out, they're like, a young lady just stopped me and she's like, you have just such this wonderful peace. It's something I'm like, great, thanks. And she said, why? And I shared a little bit, but it's like, we become nicer people when we're healthy, right? I mean, so it's this transformation that happens through trusted relationships. And so if we could do that for a student, reducing the suffering alone, more than two sentences, forgive me, Dr. Fujon, but it's like reduce the suffering for the student and help them to be a better contributor to their school and their society. And that's what the tool is about. Catch them early, prevent it from happening, and even bolster and support, strengthen those areas that even make them a greater contributor to life. And I want that to be other people's story, not the struggle. I want them to, thrive earlier. So that's what the tool's about, and that's my aim, and that's the reason for it.
Beautiful. How could the audience support the nonprofit? Because I know that I'm sure that we've all been a teenager, some of us have gone to college experiences, but we've all been that age, whether we chose to go to college or not. And then some people who are listening raise teenagers and young adults. So if there could be, obviously we share with them what they can gain. How could they support the nonprofit, and what are the ways of supporting the nonprofit?
Yeah. Terrific. My dream and wish and request is that they would take and share the tool with their colleges, their counseling centers, but especially their administrators in their high schools and colleges. And what studies find and surveys find is that administrators don't know about this type of tool, and a majority of them would adapt the tool. So really what's hindering students from doing well is the administrator learning about it, and the administrator doesn't know about it because we're doing all that we can, but we need people to share the tool. And if we could get it into the hands of students, I'm really grateful and excited. I mean, it is free. It's free. It's science backed, and it's completely anonymous. So it meets every criteria that students would want, as our studies have shown at UCLA. I've done these focus groups, and the students keep saying that they want anonymity and they want, science backed. So if they could please share it, not just with a loved one, but almost enforce it in their schools, like promote it. And they could always contact me through the website, thegoodstudent.org, thegoodstudent.org. That would make my suffering, if I could say that, and all of our suffering worth it. And, your time and my time and everything we're trying to do. It would mean very much to me if we could get it used in schools, and it's validated.
Beautiful. So, and I definitely will put it in the show notes so that people know where to go. Anything we haven't shared that you really want people to know?
Definitely. And the thing is, the suffering, We both have our experiences and life experiences. And you mentioned love is so important. And we talk about Sternberg's triangular theory of love and these different agape and, unconditional love. But I think human relationships are at the center of it all. It's who said it? It's our relationships that break us, but it's also relationships that heal, and hope, and all these wonderful people like yourself and Sherzad Ardalan, a colleague and friend of ours. They have given me hope, and hope has, and the relationships build that relationship and keep going at it. So, mirroring your message on love, truly.
Say again one more time, where can people find you?
Yes, thegoodstudent.org. Yeah, thank you, thegoodstudent.org.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you so much.
And sharing your passion that it came through your own struggles, and then learning how to heal yourself and knowing what other people might need also in order to start that path. And I think that's a beautiful journey and a mission. And I hope that everyone who is with us that hears it, supports it, and allows this not only to support every single teenager and young adult that is needing that in the world. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for your role model, Dr. Fujon. I greatly appreciate you and value all that you're doing, both on this podcast and your research and your teaching. You are a role model for so many of us. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And I hope to have you back as we move along with more tools and more concepts to come, and the more research data that we can come. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Awareness, integration theory, certification programs. If you're a psychotherapist, clinician, or coach ready to elevate your impact, I invite you to become certified in the Awareness Integration Theory, AIT model. AIT is a structured, evidence-informed approach that strengthens emotional regulation, reduces anxiety and depression patterns, and helps clients create lasting change. Our training is practical, clear, and immediately usable in sessions, so you can work with more confidence and consistency. Join a global community of practitioners shaping the future of integrative mental health. Become AIT certified today. Visit awarenessintegration.com.